Yesterday, I arrived in Israel for the first time in 2 years, and more significantly, my first trip to Israel since the massacre of October 7th in 2023. And even while I was on my way, actually, I had a layover in Munich, and it was there that I had some thoughts and some realizations, and thought it would be good for me to do one of the very rare solo episodes that I have done on the show maybe once or twice in the past, a long time ago. Um, the first thing I noticed, which I kind of forgot, having not traveled here for 2 years, is how I arrived at the gate in Munich, and the gate is in this closed off area where you have additional security for flights to Israel. You need additional security because these flights are more of a target than flights to anywhere else, and that's the case not just when you fly from Germany to Israel. It's the case when you fly from anywhere to Israel. It reminded me of the last time I was in Germany, not on a layover. I was sitting at a restaurant with my wife, and we near the window, and we saw an armed security guard or policeman across the street patrolling, and wondered what's there, and checked Google Maps and saw that it's a synagogue. And during that trip to Berlin, we saw at least one more synagogue that had to have armed security because Jews are a target just for being Jews. And in a sense, in unfortunately an ever-growing sense recently, a legitimate target, considered a legitimate target, even in the most civilized of countries, which is why, um, yeah, I think it's important to realize what a unique country it is in the fact that it exists and still exists, but also in the need for it. I've said on this show or on this channel in the past that I'm a reluctant Zionist, and I've gotten anger from people about that. But I was thinking about that yesterday while boarding the flight, how the need for the existence of the state of Israel as a Jewish state is possibly the saddest statement about the current state of humanity. The fact that it's in an ideal world, in a world where cultures and people are rational, you would not need a state for people to hide from the threat that they're under wherever they go. And this has been the case of with Jews, for millennia. We still see today people using you've been kicked out of 105 countries. I don't know if the math is correct, but that's something that we hear being said as proof that, of course, Israel are the bad guys, and somehow we should have sympathy for, and should be supportive of those who want to slaughter the Jews. I have to say, there are things I love about Israel. There are things I don't really love about Israel. Part of it I already experienced when about to board the plane, and thinking about how everybody's rushing in, as opposed to elsewhere where people kind of respect the fact that there's group numbers, and you take you wait your turn. And I was getting upset. I was thinking, Israel in many ways belongs in the Middle East, but in many ways absolutely doesn't. And it, as a culture, one of the amazing things about Israeli culture is that it came together so quickly out of cultures that are really different in many ways. Yes, to the extent that they were religious, that it was the same religion, but Arab Jews, which I know people don't like calling themselves that, but Jews who came from Arab countries, Jews who came from Europe, Jews who came from America, were very, very different culturally, and yet they've managed to create this culture here that, when I say it's not my favorite culture, it is the culture I find most impressive in the world, because of the fact that it came together and it was built, and it's now such a technologically impressive country that produces that has more patents registered per capita than any country in the world other than the US, actually per capita than any country, and more in numbers than any country other than the US, while being surrounded by savages who just want to kill every Jew. I mean, it would be impressive without that. But with that, it's even more so. And yeah, I think that is noteworthy. I have a lot more to say. Let me quickly, because I'm reading notes for this from my phone, I should take a quick look at the chat. Thank you, PC, for the super chat. PC says Israel is a good moral nation. Um, within look, compared to others, yeah, I think Israel is one of the better ones. I think many of Israel's problems are because of the wrong morality, and but that is true elsewhere as well. Thank you, PC, for another super chat. PC says you're a great man, Razi. I really appreciate that, and thank you, Apollo Zeus, for the super chat. So the, back to the reason why Israel was necessary, and again, it's necessary. It's very, very clear to anybody who's following what's going on in Western countries today, how Jews are under attack. But Jews have been under attack throughout history, and are at risk everywhere. They're not at risk from everyone everywhere. They're at risk, you know, from some people everywhere, and in some places they are at risk from pretty much everyone, as is the case in Arab countries where Jews were kicked out of, in many cases slaughtered, and of course this happened in Europe less than 100 years ago, in the lifetime of some people who are still alive. So we need to keep that in mind when we talk about anti-Semitism and how it manifests itself in the actions taken by those who hold those views. Uh, if you look at social media, even a quick glance will show the kind of hatred that is unparalleled when you look at the hatred of any other group, but also unparalleled in how legitimate it's considered compared to other groups. And there are some people who use the caveats Zionist, but you see people posting on social media videos of them being abusive towards Israelis, not in a horrible way in many cases, but just as something to be proud of. Somebody told me they're from Israel. Here's me treating them like shit, because I care about women and children, and the Israelis kill them. Now, I have to say, people say that social media, is more toxic than the culture in general. It doesn't reflect where the culture is. It's bots. I often hear it's bots, and that's certainly possible. That it's bots. It's certainly possible that Daniel and I were talking a couple of weeks ago about how within a 5-day period, we got more than 100 death wishes slash death threats between the two of us combined across all of social media. It's certainly possible that some of those are bots. But the people in the crowd at Coachella are not bots. The people chanting "Free Palestine," they were actual people. Now, do they fully understand that what they're chanting for is the uh, elimination of the only Jewish state by people whose cause is the extermination of the Jews? Do they fully understand that? I don't know, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter historically. People don't have to have the full ideology of that they're executing in order to execute it. And this kind of chant in a music festival is a part of that. You know, do they know? Do the people in Coachella, do they realize that the current war that is the reason why this was even brought up in Coachella? Uh, do they know that it started with a massacre, in large part, a massacre of people in a music festival similar to Coachella? Do they know that Israel is the only country in the Middle East where a Coachella-like festival could happen? That it's completely unimaginable in Palestinian culture, whether it's fully, self they're running their own affairs as they did in Gaza up until a year and a half ago. Uh, and in any Arab country where you cannot say Israel is occupying, this could not happen, this music festival. Do they know that? Again, that doesn't matter because they are a part of the war by their own choice, and that choice could be the choice of, I've looked at it and I've looked at all the different aspects of it, and I've decided the Jews needed to be exterminated, or because they're just following along because that's what the crowd is doing. Ultimately, it doesn't matter in terms of what we see in the world and that unfortunate need for the existence of a Jewish state. Um, so yeah, it's possible, by the way, it's possible that they know, it's possible that they rationalize it. We heard people after October 7th say about the music festival, well, they were rubbing it in their faces, or they were doing it right outside an open air prison, all rationalizations imaginable. But remember, this crowd, and that's something to always remember if you're talking to these people or at these people or about these people, the full on uh, free Palestine people. It's it's important to remember the fact that what happened. First of all, what happened was a massacre. Other than the music festival, a massacre of people on the Israeli left. It's important to remember there was a massacre of, in many cases, families in their own homes. And it's important to remember that when today you hear them talk about women and children. When they tell you one of the catchphrases is history didn't start on October 7th. You know what else didn't start on October 7th is the women and children catchphrase on the pro-Hamas side or pro-Palestinian side or anti-Israel side or whatever you want to call them or they want to call themselves. Because on October 7th, they saw with their own eyes videos of people choosing to live stream themselves, not caught on video, choosing to live stream themselves, murdering women and children. And the reaction of these people was to take to the streets in London, in New York, in San Francisco, around the world, take to the streets and celebrate. The reaction was to produce stickers with paragliders because it was one of the things that you saw on October 7th, people crossing the border that way in order to murder Jews, Jewish women and children, among others. Um, and it's important to look at that and remember that and remind that to that crowd when they pretend otherwise, that they saw signs of people who were taken hostage, including women and children, and they tore those signs down. They drew swastikas on them. This is the side that makes Israel not just the enemy or the bad guys in this war, but makes Israel their cause of all the things they see going on in the world. The existence of Israel is the problem as far as they're concerned. And if you have a way of explaining that other than the desire to exterminate the Jews, uh, please let us know in the comments below. Um, but I would say it's often a part of a much larger evil ideology, and the Jews, that ideology taken to its logical conclusion, will lead you to probably put the Jews as first in your list of targets. Okay, let me go back to the chat and see if there's anything there. Okay, thank you, Jonathan, for the super chat. Thank you, PC, for the super chat. Thank you, Ori, for the super chat. Ori says, I had such a great time in Israel last month. Um, yeah, okay, I will continue. I'm sure there are interesting comments as well, but since I'm doing a solo episode, I can't really read them, or the pauses will be too long. Um, so all of what I've said so far is why Israel needs to exist in the sense of um, it needs to exist so that Jews can actually defend themselves as opposed to uh, live in countries where, when it comes to Jews, there's it's a special case. It's a special case where we saw this video that went viral for obvious reasons of a Jewish man in a anti-Israel protest in London, where he was surrounded by anti-Israel protesters who said to him things like, "We're going to follow you. We know where you are. We know who you are." All sorts of really threatening things in the presence of police. And the police said to him, "You're quite visibly Jewish or openly Jewish, and we're going to have to arrest you if you don't leave." So you can see why in situations like that in the United Kingdom, which I cannot be accused of not criticizing the UK when it deserves it, which is often. But if if you ask the question compared to what, Britain is still one of the better countries in the world, and this is the situation for Jews there. The US is certainly one of the best countries in the world, despite all my criticism for it, and Jews are not safe there. So the need for Israel, I think, is clear, unless, of course, you think, as an increasing number of people seem to, uh, that that the Jews deserve it and deserve whatever they're getting. But what about the rest of the world? And this is a question I'm still looking at and asking how the better countries in the world where they're going. And of course, I have my preferences, but I also have my concerns. My concerns, I think, are more likely to come to fruition than what I would like to see. And in the case of Israel, and specifically in the case of the Jews, it's going to be difficult for the way the world looks at it and the way people in the world who actually mean well look at it to talk themselves out of saying that what is going on is evil. And I think Israel is this, in effect, mirror to the world, to say, look, you're here's where your fundamental values, fundamental altruistic values, here's how they apply in the case of a group, because you have to think of groups rather than individuals. A group that seemingly does well, is hated by people who don't do well. And how do we approach that? It's I think it's gonna become or should already be clearer because of the built-in racism. Then, for example, something that I know for many viewers and for myself as well is clear, like the murder of the United Healthcare CEO, and the fact that the murderer is being hailed as this hero. Uh, that where people struggle there, I would think they should struggle less in the case of Israel. Neither is legitimate as a point of view. But when you are actually advocating against an entire group, a group based, again, based on immutable characteristics, and we can talk about whether Jews are actually a race or not. I don't really see it, but it doesn't matter, in the sense that there is bigotry against this group, whether the bigotry is correct. And of course, it's not. It's correct on the claim that Jews are a race. And of course, it's not correct in so many ways, and in some ways, in ways that make us think, okay, this is so ridiculous that it should be dismissed. For example, we see, Israel is basically white supremacists fighting against brown people. Anybody who, I don't want to go all Douglas Murray here. I've criticized his that one thing that he said in his debate. But if you do stand in the middle of any busy street in Israel and look around for like 5 minutes, you will quickly be disabused of the notion that Israel is all white people. But of course, that's not a notion that is in any way based on fact to begin with, and that would make it easier to dismiss, for rational people. But there is something underlying there that says, okay, how do we explain the fact that we support the mass murder of people, including women and children, while saying that what we are fighting against is the murder of women and children? And that's brought up. They're white, so it's kind of additionally okay. So in this sense, I think Israel is yeah, that mirror to the world's conscience. Here's your fundamental, to some extent, your fundamental philosophical premises. Here's what they look like in practice. You are supporting the slaughter of innocent civilians and their slaughterers. These are the people you're supporting are the people who live stream themselves going into homes, going to a music festival, killing anybody they can, taking some hostage, torturing, raping, burning people alive, taking hostages and starving them to death while you claim that starvation is a bad thing, starving them to death in tunnels, smashing babies' heads in. This is who you are supporting, and there is no way around it. And whatever you tell yourself, you know, here's that mirror. Here's what you're actually for. And I think how the world would deal with situations like that without Israel would be interesting to see. But that is Israel at the moment, as a mirror, as this uh, asterisk on the world's moral code of, yes, we're against all these things, but the Jews. And again, you replace the word with Zionist, you replace the word with Israeli. Um, we know what you mean, and what you mean is that it is okay to kill these people. And the reason, and of course, the more you dig deeper, and we've done that on the channel, into any of the arguments, the more you realize the problem is that Jews live. So, you hear the word settlement, you hear, you know, you hear they stole the land, they stole people's homes. Uh, Ultimately, that is the argument against Jews. They're alive. By the way, I'll go back to the point I was making about social media, and something I've noticed, and I mentioned this on one of the members group, that one of the most depressing things I find in how it's used in today's culture is the laughing emoji. And I was looking at a Facebook post about a week ago when a famous Israeli footballer, his home was broken into, and the stories about it popped up on Facebook for me a few times, and most of the reactions were laughing emojis. And when I made the mistake of going and looking at the comments, it was comments about, yeah, he stole people's home. Now he knows how it feels. By the way, he doesn't live in settlements in the international law sense of, beyond the 1967 borders. So that kind of tells you how serious they are about, any two-state solution. The anti-Israel crowd does not want a two-state solution. It wants Israel gone. Um, Another one was yesterday. There was a shark attack in Israel. Somebody went into the sea and was attacked and killed by a shark. And again, today I saw news stories about it with laughing emojis because it's an Israeli. Therefore, it's funny that he gets eaten by a shark. And look, I've said on this show and on this channel many times, for me, after October 7th, I'm embarrassed that it took October 7th for this, but after October 7th, people who have any sympathy to the Palestinians have no place in my life. That we have nothing in common fundamentally, and it doesn't matter if they like Seinfeld and wrestling and, they eat their steaks rare. It doesn't matter. They're not, legitimate human beings as far as I'm concerned. Um, and yeah, the more you look into how that movement plays out, and it's only getting worse, the more I hope other people will come to that conclusion. By the way, you know, I often hear from people, there's nothing I can do. I'm one person. That's something you can do. I have friends, I have people I respect who tell me things that really shock me. Like, I hear these things, and it's not only about support for the Palestinians, but that's one of the things. And but I like this person, so I don't want to say anything that's gonna, break the relationship. And I'm like, what what type of individual crime, if you break October 7th into specifics, just burning somebody alive, just torturing, just one instance of rape, just the killing of one baby, you take it out of Israel, you put it in some random place in the US or in Canada or anywhere, and a friend expressed support for that. Like, how likely are you to say, well, but they're fun to hang out with? Uh, so that is something you can do. And look, I started this with saying how depressed I am that the need for Israel is there, but it is there. And the only way we actually move culturally to a point where we're not going to get rid in our lifetime of bigotry and of its most legitimate form in the West today, which is anti-Semitism, but you can get rid of it in your immediate circle, and I think that's a huge start. And that is uh, a part that I think everybody watching who agrees with me can play that role in putting that mirror up to, if not the entire world, then the part of the world that you have direct access to, because Israel, like I said, is that mirror to the world's conscience. And we need to tell people, actually, this is not the way. And, if it's wrong, it is wrong when done to Jews. And yeah, let's hope we get to a day. And I'm going to say this, and I know many in the audience might be upset, but I really hope we get to a day where Israel is unnecessary, where Zionism is unnecessary, where Israel can continue to exist, obviously, but the need for it as a place where Jews can escape to and then defend themselves, because they will always be surrounded, whether it's in that small sliver of land in the Middle East or in Golders Green in North London or wherever it is. That need will go away because the culture will be better. Okay, that is what I have to say on that, and that is the first of hopefully quite a few episodes that I will be doing from Israel in the coming weeks. Thanks everybody for watching. Thanks for people participating in the chat, and I managed to read the super chat, but I will read the rest. The reality show follows in a couple of minutes, and the daily objective is back tomorrow. Are we still on the air, Daniel? Then I will read
Yes.
that. Okay, then I will read another super chat that I missed. Thank you, Yotam, for the super chat. Yotam says, great episode. Thanks, Razi. Hummus on me. Yes, I am stopping by in New York on my next trip for that hummus. I will take you up on that offer. And thanks for the super chat as well. Unless you meant the super chat is for hummus, in which case this is company money. I can't use it, but thanks. The reality show's next.